Yeah, maybe. Thank you for coming to this press briefing. I had not intended to have a press conference today, but over the past 2 days, I have received numerous calls from various media houses asking me about our positions, that is the party's position on various issues. And rather than having to deal individually with all of the reporters who have contacted me, I thought that I'd give you a chance collectively to listen to a few brief remarks and then to ask me questions of your choosing, but particularly in the areas that you've been asking us to speak about. And so, up to yesterday, after the President spoke in the National Assembly, I was asked about our position on the speech. And at that point in time, I said, there are two elements to this speech. The first is a reporting element. And I think it's good for the country when the President can report on what has taken place in various meetings at the national level and at the international level, particularly pertaining to the border. There is also, or there was a second element to the speech, a policy element to the speech. And we had views on that element of the speech, but I wanted, or I would have preferred, to have a more private channel for communicating those ideas or positions on the policy element of the speech to the executive without having to do so through the media. But I've been questioned more and more since yesterday by members of the media, most of them saying, well, we'll never know the PPP's position on these issues if you choose private channels to communicate your views on the border, or own that as the sole means. And so I thought that this afternoon I should share a few brief concerns that I have, given how cautious I have been on addressing matters relating to our border. But I do not think these concerns will in any way undermine or affect the strong solidarity that we have given at the national level to preserve the integrity, territorial integrity of our country. And so, what are the concerns I'm speaking about? What are they? The first has to do with a month and a half almost after I have indicated in no uncertain terms to the President that we are prepared to participate in the border committee that he proposed. That committee has not been established. Whilst Gail Teixeira, even prior to my meeting with the President, had attended meetings with the United Nations and as part of a foreign affairs team, her involvement there came out of some discussions I had with Carl Greenidge in the Parliament. And so she has continued to meet at that level when the United Nations team has, on I think 2 occasions, come to Guyana, and she has made me privy to what took place at those meetings. But yesterday I heard some very strong positions on the border. And to arrive at those strong positions, particularly on both fronts, with Suriname and with Venezuela, I would think that the government would have had clear answers to certain issues. So, first of all, because I have not been able to raise these issues in a private forum, the President spoke of the meeting with the Secretary General of the United Nations and President Maduro. And at which point in time it was made clear to them that Guyana is strongly in favor of a juridical process to settle the border issue. Now, he mentioned that according to the Geneva Agreement, that we can move to the UN Charter, I think Article 33, to explore other means of settling the border issue if the good officers process is not yielding results. My question is the juridical process part of the menu available to the Secretary General under Article 33 of the Charter of the United Nations? Is it available? And has the UN team said that they're prepared to explore this as one of the options available for the settlement of the border issue? I know that the Venezuelan side has publicly declared that they are not in favor of the juridical process. But I'm more interested in finding out what the United Nations position is. Because if it is not part of the menu available to the Secretary General through the Charter, and we insist on going this route, does it mean that we will have to do so independent of any UN involvement, or would the UN withdraw from the process? And if they withdraw, would it mean, can we go unilaterally to initiate a juridical process, or do we have to do so with the agreement of Venezuela? And given the atmosphere that we have now, would we be able to succeed in that process? Not the outcome of the juridical process, but the process to initiate a juridical process. So that's my first big concern about what has happened, that we have declared we want a juridical settlement. Is that part of the menu available to the Secretary General under the Charter, going the juridical route? Will the UN be prepared to recommend that to Venezuela as part of the settlement? And if it is not part of the menu available to the Secretary General under the Charter, does it mean we'd have to go it alone and lose UN's involvement in the process? So these are some issues that we could have raised privately, but as I said before, we have not been able to do so. The second issue relating to Venezuela, and I saw the president mention about Chavez when he visited Guyana, what he said about the border issue and the continuation of the discussions through the bilateral commission. But what we have to use to our advantage too is a clear statement by President Chavez when he came to Guyana, that the border issue is an imperialist imposition on our countries. And I've not heard any reference to that in the speech. Because if the sitting president of Venezuela at that time viewed the border issue as an imperialist imposition on these two countries, then that must mean something. It must mean that the claims themselves had to be spurious and were serving not Venezuelans' interests, but the imperialists, the so-called imperialist interests. And so I'd urge not just to look, because the president just mentioned one thing about what Chavez said, but I want to urge that they look further to what Chavez said in the speech, because this has far-reaching implications about how Chavez viewed the border issue. Now, I saw the president, when speaking about Venezuelans' action affecting Guyana's economy, said in the past 25 years, this has stymied, or we have allowed this process to stymie our development. And I don't know if it was an attempt to be political, because the PPP has been in office for about 23 years. But if it was, or even if it wasn't, I wish to point out to the president that Venezuela's attempt to affect our economy or to object to projects in the Essequibo, which stymied our economy, predated our getting into office, or the PPP assuming office in this country. We would recall the Upper Mazaruni Development Project that was a victim of two things: bad planning and Venezuela's objection. And that was a huge project, hydropower project, that saw us spending some $300 million and then leaving the steel to rot in the jungle. So I just wanted to say a little bit on that issue. I was a bit surprised too that we would want to open up a new front on the border with Suriname. Now, the president of Suriname said the New River Triangle is on the agenda. I don't know if it ever left their agenda. There are times when they would not speak about the New River Triangle, but I was under no illusion that the New River Triangle for them was always on the agenda. We sought to put it in the background by emphasizing economic relations. But taking that statement by the president of Suriname and then opening up a second front at the time when we have issues with Suriname, in my view, is not advisable. That we would have, at the same time, border issues on two fronts. And then, and I agree with the president that in 1936, the border was settled with Suriname. There is an agreement to that effect, he said in his speech, and I agree with him absolutely. This is a settled border. And I was a bit surprised to see that we are urging Suriname now, if they believe in the strength of their case, to go to an adjudicatory process to deal with the New River Triangle issue. In the years I've been president, I've always argued that the matter is settled and this is sovereign Guyanese territory, and there is absolutely no need for a juridical process, an adjudicatory process, to deal with this matter again. Now, on the other hand, with Venezuela, we may need to do so because there was the Geneva Agreement that was signed in 1966. But with Suriname, I thought the border was settled. New River Triangle is ours by agreement. Whether the Dutch open their archives or not, it's irrelevant. And maybe we can get the British and the European Union, because they say they're helpful to us now, to urge the Dutch to open their archives. We have tried in the past, but whether they open it or not, to submit ourselves now to an adjudicatory process in relation to the New River Triangle, I don't know what the rationale is. Maybe there is a good rationale behind it, but I've not had the opportunity to listen to the government side explaining why this was so. And because there is no engagement of that nature. So I did not want to speak much about borders. I have avoided speaking about borders because I don't want to convey the impression that we are divided on this. But there are some concerns that I have that maybe privately there may be good explanations for why we have to go down this process. And maybe those explanations, the questions I raised relating to Suriname and the juridical process, maybe getting answers to those questions will allow us to have a more considered position on the border. The second issue has to do with the salary increase. I've been asked about that. You know, I have not spoken much about it. But I find it just as reprehensible as all the people who have spoken out against it. And for the reasons that they have given. We heard that the economy was bankrupt at the beginning, and then to have the cabinet take for itself this large increase in an economy that was supposed to be bankrupt defies logic. We've heard public servants promise 20%, and we're told that they could not afford the 20% now, but then the ministers can take 50%, and the Prime Minister's salary now goes to $1.7 million a month. We have heard we don't have enough money to double the old age pension now, as promised in their manifesto for the first 100 days. We have seen the withdrawal of the subsidy, the water subsidy to pensioners. But the cost of funding this increase for 26 persons will be more than paying the water subsidy for 44,000 pensioners. The cost of funding the salary increase for the ministers alone. We've heard about how people used to make large sums of money in the past, and therefore they had to maintain this, the pay parity, the pay. Well, we are hopeful that the motion that we have before Parliament to release 10 years of income tax payments would reveal how much money people were actually making in the past. And then we heard about the corruption thing. So what about corruption elsewhere? Does it follow that they should increase the salaries of everyone to avoid corruption? And are they saying that the ministers would have been corrupt had they not had the increase? So, and shouldn't now the judiciary, members of the judiciary, get a huge salary increase too? What about the police? What about other public servants? So I don't think that there is any way it could be justified. Now, there's one thing that people do not see, that because we have not discussed it in great detail as yet, and we're doing some calculations to show that a minister would probably get, in terms of other benefits outside of the salary, close to $1 million a month. And so if you add that to what they're getting now, it will, then you can get the true picture of this issue. So we will debate the issue whenever it gets on the order paper. Both issues, the two motions that we have put into the Parliament. The PPP members of Parliament have received the increase, and so we are discussing one of two options how to proceed on this matter. Either to return the money to the Treasury with a check, or to hand it over every month to a charity. But definitely the members on our side will not take the increase. There are some other issues that people have been talking to me about in the outreach. There is a huge concern now that is growing, that the cabinet now interprets the no objection clause for contracts differently that we had put in place. The no objection clause, prior to the time it was in place, cabinet used to approve contracts. And then we changed the law and said that the cabinet can only offer a no objection. So the recommendation that goes from the tender board, if the cabinet disagrees with that recommendation, it has to inform the tender board that it disagrees, and the reason why. They cannot change the award. We've heard that this cabinet is interpreting the no objection as the ability to change the award. So they have gone back contrary to the law to now approve contracts. We have heard about the stacking of the tender boards, the regional tender boards, the ministerial tender boards, and others with party activists. Now, it would be good to get all of the tender board members now. I'm not sure that the media knows who they are. I mean, the media members in the media, because there are 10 regional tender boards and several ministerial tender boards, and then to compare them with who were there before. It would be a very interesting thing for the media to find out, because this government that says it believes in transparency has surreptitiously, insidiously appointed a lot of these tender boards and put a lot of party members on their board, many of them not qualified, across the country, who will be adjudicating now contracts. We have heard about some 20 companies that have been created, newly created, and they are helped. That one particular minister is busy creating these companies, and they are now given contracts, or the large contractors. We have one case, the person told me, he said he was told that he could get the contract if he promises to appoint as subcontractors these people these newly created companies. So this is a major shift, and it's all being done quietly with very little scrutiny. We want to put on notice all the offending parties that we are paying attention to it. And we are going to, the public officers who are there, some are engaged in the evaluation of bids, etc. We want to urge them not to be pressured, in making particular recommendations, or to expose when they come under pressure to change recommendations, because a lot of this is happening now. So it is something that is big on our horizon now. We have just started exploring it, and it's quite shocking that in such a short period of time that so much is being done in this regard. Of course, I have major concerns about the economy and it grinding to a halt. And it's not just reflected in growth rate. It's reflected in lost income and lost jobs. And my fear is that we may have several financial crises long before we have an economic crisis, particularly with the currency and with our banking system. And so it is I was in Region 5 and I had several community meetings, and I met with some businessmen, and they have grave misgivings about the law that is currently before Parliament, the Financial Institutions Amendment Act, which they're worried that GRA now will be used politically to go after their information in the banks. And I am very fearful about what this could trigger. Many of them probably will pull their money out of the system. And if that happens, you will have a large-scale movement of resources switching to US dollars or to be externalized as capital flight. This could cause a run on the banks as well as major problems with our currency. And I urge the government to be careful about the signals that they're sending, because if that were to ever happen, we will trigger a crisis of unimaginable proportion in this country. And they keep doing all of this. I heard the taxes on trucks has been increased now because they changed the basis on which to calculate the taxes. So that's trucks are used in the productive sector. I've heard they've made the conditions for accessing the duty-free concessions that they gave to the mining sector so onerous that it will not help, particularly the small and medium-scale miners, many of them. I have had urged that they consider reducing the royalty payments on a sliding scale, which we had done in the past when this sector was in crisis, but do it only for the local companies. The rice industry, there seems to be a total withdrawal from the rice industry. There are no concerted efforts to look for markets for rice, nor is there any effort to help people to get over the crisis, another productive sector, by giving, say, duty-free fuel to the rice farmers too, etc. What I see is an obsession with spending. And so we see a lot of cleaning work being done, and it's wonderful, and I support it. Cleaning, but cleaning is an expenditure. We need to see as a country the same sort of effort and support to productive sectors as well as the job creating sectors. Because it's only, you can spend money only if you earn it. It's a country too. And my fear is that they are so big on the spending side that they're forgetting that after some time, if you don't fix the side that generates the revenue, you're going to run into greater difficulty. And this seems to be the philosophy driving the government now. So these have been, I'm not going to speak for much longer because I promise to be pretty short today. And these are just 4 of the issues that people have been raising concerns about in the media, as well as others have been raising concerns about. So thank you very much. Open the floor for questions. Yeah, but I thought we'll move forward in a structural way. That is the board. I've made it quite clear the first meeting. We will be a participant, an active participant of the board committee. We would like that committee to be put in place so that a lot of these issues can be ventilated in those circles or in the committee itself. So that is how I want to urge the President to put the board committee in place to operationalize it.
In your administration, there was a decision to go the juridical route for the settlement of the water controversy. What was the analysis with respect to the role the UN could play or any other mechanism?
We explored this as one of the options. We explored the juridical route as one of the options. But we did not say the juridical route or nothing else. So that's a huge difference. Huge difference.
But in analyzing the juridical option, what role did the then administration envisage the UN could or could not play, and if not, even what other mechanisms?
I don't want to be definitive, but my understanding, and this is why I said that the UN has to say whether the juridical route is part of their the menu available to them under Article 33 of their charter. My understanding of it, the briefing that I've had, is that no, it is not available. And so if we decide to go that route, this is based on that understanding that you could very well lose UN's involvement. Now, I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I am hoping that I'm wrong, but this is a point that we can clarify with the government too, that maybe you can ask.
And also, having regard to that analysis that showed it was not a middle route, what are the other options for seeking juridical settlement?
As I said before, I'm not going to explore all the ideas about border issues. There are several options we discussed over the years that saw no concession on the land, on our land claims. But we believe that Venezuela could have walked away with, we could have found a medium there. I don't want to, I'm getting into dangerous grounds because I don't want to explore every option here in the public. I just want to make sure that whatever we do would not leave the country exposed. That is what I want to ensure. I'm not going to explore because I can tell you about 5 routes, 5 options that we looked at in what might be possible as a solution. There were 5 options that we looked at. But I don't want to explore that. I think it's counterproductive now. Yes, please.
Just so that I get this clear, are you saying that when your party was in power, you did your analysis of this border issue, you understand it to mean that that the Secretary General taking a stance where he says that it should go to a judicial process was not one of our options?
That's not what I said. I said a point I would have liked to ask the government, since if we had had this opportunity to talk privately with the border committee, that when they met with the UN and with the Secretary General, did he say, first of all, that the juridical option is one of the options available to them to recommend to us? That is what I'm asking, is this something emanating from the UN? Can it emanate from the UN? Or is it something that Guyana is putting up by itself, regardless of whether it's part of a UN menu or not? Is it our suggestion to them, or does this emanate from the United Nations team itself? And if it did not come from them, to ask them a further question whether that is part of something that would allow them, if we decide to go this route, can the UN still be involved in the process?
So what did you mean when you say, my understanding is that no, it is not available? When you said,
That is my understanding, but I would like to find out when the meeting that the president had and the ministers had with the UN team, what did the UN say? Because my understanding now, at this point in time is immaterial if the United Nations says, yes, it's part of our menu, and we are recommending this. Then we are, that's clear to me. It gives me a clear answer.
But Jack, your understanding is that no.
At the point, yes, at this point in time, but I just want clarification on that. That is what I'm saying.
Point of clarity, under the PPP, 5 options were explored. At that
No. These are 5 options that I know of. Explore, this is why border issues are sensitive. I can't just say explored, because it meant with them.
Right.
These are issues that we discussed that I am aware of as Jagdeo. What we sought, we had a good officers process in action. So the good officers process, all of our business on the border was conducted through the good officers and then through our foreign ministers. The last thing we left with when we left is that Venezuela promised to submit to us from my briefing from Caroline Rodriguez is to restart the good officers process, but to put a time limit to how long they will work for. And then if we do not succeed in making progress and that time elapses, then we will move together to explore other options. So we had not explored any of these options excepting through the good officers process, the discussion. So there wasn't been a formal proposal from the government of Ghana, like now there is a formal proposal, to the UN that we go the juridical route.
And the only difference between now and then is that you were more involved.
Yeah.
Your clarification. Then Foreign Minister Rodriguez had said on the record that the government was going to go the juridical route. So then how does that correlate with what you're saying?
It is one of the options. We had not exhausted the good officers process. So if you're still in the good officers process, you can't be in the juridical route at the same time.
That was my clarification. If there was an indication that we would go to, we were still in the good officers process, there was no active move to deal with a juridical settlement.
Yes.
Now the UN is actively involved. It's a different scenario from then.
Yeah,
right?
totally. That's why I'm saying there are lots of things we consider. When you're in government, you have to consider everything. But what you put forward is important because that is on the table. What was on the table, as far as I'm aware, is the last position. And so this is my big concern is to keep the United Nations involved even if you go the juridical route. It's not a question, I'm not questioning the juridical route. I'm saying we need to keep the United Nations involved at all costs. So it is clear.
Lord Mosley
Yeah.
Resource. Mr. Jagdeo, sir.
Yeah.
President Granger had indicated that the government is already looking at putting together a legal team, and that just because they're having these UN talks, it does not prevent the government from looking at these options and still moving along this
Yeah,
juridical route. So your thoughts about that, sir? And could you also say, when Ms. Rodriguez Burkett was foreign minister, one of her last statements was that we have exhausted the good officers process. It was at a standstill, not going anywhere. So could you then say what would a PPP government today be doing with what Venezuela is now throwing at us?
Well, we gather that there are several other options available to the Secretary General. So if I don't want to say much about the options, But let me tell you, I'm in a very difficult position. But there were other options that involve a negotiated settlement. Negotiated settlement, which did not see any land concession. Any land concession that the 1899 award would remain intact. But there was one view, let me say it as a view, that you could probably, on the maritime area, give Venezuela a channel out to the sea. So you make a slight concession in the maritime area, but make sure that you do not concede any territory that is land-based, because the maritime boundaries still are yet to be determined. And so there was that option that was floating out. I do not want to speculate. There are several options between the good officers and juridical. There are several other options. I am not saying the juridical option is bad. I'm saying if we decide as a country to go this route, can we go it alone? What if Venezuela does not want to go this route? So that's the first question that is asked. It should be asked. Could Guyana unilaterally go the juridical route, or do we have to get Venezuela's agreement? Secondly, if we go the juridical route, will it be a suggestion that comes out of the menu that is available to the UN, a suggestion that comes from the UN itself? Or will it mean us losing the UN because they would say, this option is not provided for by our charter? These are two issues. I'm not questioning the juridical route, and that is an option. I'm just saying that it is very important. I have been very reluctant to speak on this matter for the same reasons. For the same reasons that not all that you know of and the briefings you've gotten as president can you say publicly without, I think, compromising our case, or not the case, but compromising maybe this solidarity that exists. And the solidarity is strong. We support the government of Guyana on our border issue. I'm not, nowhere should that be questioned. Or, yes, let's go to someone else. Yes, Jomo.
Sir, you just said with one of the water negotiation that would see Guyana give Venezuela a channel outlet from the river.
Huh? Huh? Yeah, but not the Essequibo River. The Orinoco, just on the border. Yeah, the border, on the border. Passage, not our Essequibo. No. I don't mean that. That is why you have to be like extremely careful, because, you know, a lot of these things are done with maps and stuff. There are map options, they drew the line, people came and made briefings about it. You know, like there are several briefings about it and what are the possibilities, etc., that sort of thing. So this is not just done by talking. Yes, please, Kajun.
You expressed a concern that if Ghana goes to the juridical route, they likely lose the UN. I'm trying to find out, from your understanding, what would be the role of the UN if we decide to go in the juridical route? Because in that case, the court would be determining.
Yeah,
So
but that is a question that I would have asked the government, and it is a question that you should ask. This is what I'm saying. I'm just saying these are some issues that would have been ventilated at a different forum had we had that forum. You should ask that question of the government. Okay, so I'm not going to venture too much answers on these issues. There are more questions that we should pose to the government.
Okay,
But on this issue, if you could just say.
No, but no, you got other,
No,
yeah.
no, it's not per se the issue, it's the meeting with government. You're in solidarity, you support them on board, it's true. You have the country's best interest at heart. Why not initiate the meeting instead of sitting back waiting? So you can always have it in log that Jabio made the first step in
Really?
getting these meetings.
Jack Dare made the first step. Yeah. We have a president in this country, and I had argued in Parliament that border matters, particularly when we talk about solutions. Our analyses could differ, but on solutions, we should all try to reach agreement on the solutions that we are seeking. Because if there is a positive consequence of that or action, we all live with it. And it would be a happy thing for Ghana. If it's negative, then we would all have to live with that too, as a country. And so, I'm not sure that I should initiate something that is primarily in the domain of the government, although I believe strongly in solidarity that there is a commitment already we made. I can't go and set up the border committee. If you want me to set up the border committee, I could set up one here at Freedom House and then invite Carl Greenwich to come over here. We'd be happy to do that, you know. We'll be very happy to do that, but I can't do that. And as I said before, I do not want anyone to interpret this, at home or abroad, that this is a questioning of the policy decisions we have made, the route that we have decided. I'm not questioning the route.
Mr.
Yes, all right, please, yeah, okay, sure.
we spoke about the motions that you guys are taking on salaries. Two questions on the salaries. One, who's made the motions? You taken the comments already?
Yes, it has been tabled. I think one is on Gail Teixeira and Irfan Ali, and the other is Gail Teixeira and Ed Hill.
Okay, and so with regards to how you're going to give back the money, you said there are two options
That,
being explored.
yeah.
One to charity and one to returning to charity.
Mhm.
In the case of the charity, would you be returning your entire salary or just the excess as to what you were having before in comparison?
The excess, yes, the salary increase.
Okay.
Mr. Jim,
With regards to the 10 boards, you said that there's one particular minister who's busy creating these companies. Would you like to increase, please?
I said it is something that is really big that we're starting to now move into, and it'll give us another few months. Remember, we got a little long haul. We're just 5 months into this thing here. You're gonna see some shocking revelations already about what's happening with the award of contracts. No, so I will not name the person at this time.
Final question.
Okay.
With regards to the GRA being used as a political tool, and you said
There is a fear.
there's fear. How do you compare it to when there were these emails circulated about Kershid
Uh-huh.
giving out information that's supposed to be private to politicians? I think you were one of the persons that email was sent to. How do you compare what was done then to what is
An email was copied to me. I was never party, but that's Kaichore's fabrication. I received a copy of something, an email. I had never sought information on private individuals, never sought.
but do you think it was wrong what he did?
They,
You must have seen the.
yeah, but Khurshid Sattar was dealing with a sitting attorney general. I do not know of what engagements they had on government business. Now, the Attorney General deals with legal issues, and Khurshid Sattar deals with the GRA, tax collections. So that's an official channel. That's an official channel.
Why would he need to copy you?
I don't know. People copy tons of things to me. People copy tons of things. Why do they copy them? I don't know. They're just, right? Well, I don't know why they copy things. I can't answer that. But people send lots of stuff to me. So this is it. But I do not believe, you can't think, even the most hostile people against the PPP government can never claim that the GRA or any state agency was used in political fashion. Because take, for example, if you want, you're talking about examples. Guyana Stores, that Glenn Lal and Tony Yassin. 10, 15 years of no annual general meetings. This is a public company. They should have been struck from the register. Should have been struck from the register. I don't want to say too much because I think it's sub judice. Is it still sub judice? I think it might be. I don't know. But that sort of thing. But I can say that 15 years or so, or 10 years or so, nothing of that sort. You know, no annual general meeting. Could have been struck from the register. Could have had like real adverse tax audits. I could go on to a few other individuals. Let me don't call people's name now. All right. So, but they can't claim that. There is a fear now. Like today I heard that there were a number of people hired at GRA for the enforcement department. And check who they are. Check who they are. I heard political and most from the army, ex-army. And now, when in light of what's happening in the country, people are fearful that their records would be used for other purposes. So I can understand the sentiment out there, and I'm not saying this is my sentiment. I talked to the business community in Region 5, and a lot of them were concerned about this. And once that catches hold in the business community, that somehow, Region 5, and once that catches hold in the business community, and there was an AFC person there too. I think he's one of their councillors at the meeting where I was. And he heard people talk to me about it. Once that catches hold of people, you're going to expect a large number of business people feeling very insecure about their transactions. So it is something that I'm urging the government acts cautiously on.
Mr. Jagdeo, sir, with regards to the salary increases, while there appears to be a big public backlash on this issue, many of the same members of the public who are complaining and criticizing the government over this, they're also frowning at your party for being critical because they're saying your party would have expended $45 million as a government on the healthcare for 7 ministers just last year. There's a seaside property issue. So they're saying you may not have the moral compass to really talk about anything that this government might be doing when it comes to these increases. What would you say to convince those persons that the PPP has the morality to speak on expenses and salary issues and increases?
Well, I don't need to convince anyone. I don't need to convince anyone about anything. And I'm not like Trotman, who said, basically, we were thinking about 100% increase, but basically the country is lucky that we took a 50% increase, and you should trust us. I'm not like that, so I'm not doing it arrogantly the way he did it. people will come to realize long before the end of this term the difference between the People's Progressive Party and the APNU AFC government, long before this. They would come to realize the propaganda issues and the real issues, how they approach public expenditure and how we approach public expenditure. So definitely, the President Ramatar said before the elections, I'll change the policy on this medical care. Medical care. He said, I will change it because, you know, we should put a cap on it. Maybe insurance, take out an insurance for everyone. But I want us to hear if this government, if they fall sick, will they cap now the spending on a minister at $200,000 for the year? Did we spend any money on Nagamotu recently when he went abroad for health care? How much? If so, how much? And the thing is that because that's the cap they put. So I want to see if they will do this. And they're very convenient about the property issue, etc. We don't hear about Carl Greenidge. They're the same person who talks so much about accountability, about the property he transferred to himself when he was in charge of that agency. We don't hear a lot about it. We heard about $110 billion that the PPP stole in the campaign. I have suggested that we make public our assets held abroad because this asset recovery unit, it's a political witch hunting unit, is saying they can't trace people's assets abroad. I have urged President Granger in the meeting we had to us jointly go to the Parliament, pass legislation to make public all the assets that members of Parliament have abroad, even if they don't want to do it for the Integrity Commission. And if they submit their assets and they lie, they can go to prison. Let's put in the legislation for 5 years and make it available to the public, not to a private group like the Integrity Commission, but table it in the Parliament, reporters can go in, etc. We don't have anything to fear. This is the same group, APNU people, who have said the PPP is not accountable, but they have not for the past maybe 10 years submitted the statement of income and assets to the Integrity Commission on the basis that, oh, we don't like the person who is chairing the Integrity Commission. What if the PPP were to say that? Because it's illegal not to submit. They all committed basically an illegal act. If we were to say we are not going to submit our statements of income and asset to the Integrity Commission because we don't like the person who is heading the thing, I'm sure the same media, the same people who say we don't have a moral compass will be the same ones criticizing us. But these people who are guided by this wonderful moral compass has not said anything about the APNU AFC members of Parliament who have breached our laws for 10 years and not submitted their statements of income and assets, and who are now refusing because Ramjatan said they will not agree to my proposal to make available to the public, to release the information to the public. And let us see if they so support transparency, whether they will support the release of 10 years of tax information to the public. So they are the ones who are the pure ones. They came in saying they will be pure, they will be transparent, above the board, etc. Every wrong they do, they seek to justify it in terms of something that the PPP did. So if we were the bad ones, Fine. Well, that's fine. We were the bad ones. Why do you have to justify your wrongdoing based on something you perceive to be done wrongly in the past when you argued that that is wrong and you will change it? That's what I say to the people with the moral compass. Hold them to the standards that they say they will uphold. And they have not. They have been very, very poor in upholding those standards. No information, the changes in parliament, the big salary increases for themselves, breaking of all election promises, not focusing on the economy. Nothing. This country is grinding to a halt. Yes, please, John.
Sir, you just say that no one can claim that any state agency was due in a political fashion on the duty. Can you say the same for NCN? And secondly, the same agency, we have reports being leaked of gross misappropriations under the duty.
Well, I've seen the reports about that, and our point is clear. If the audits are done by professionals, objectively, and there is evidence of wrongdoing, then the police must be invited in. And criminal proceedings should take place against people, instituted against people. But you can't have witch hunting audits. You can't have an audit where the management letter, in the case of NISIL, is sent to the people for a response. And then the minister claims that it's recommending criminal action, and there is no such thing in the report. Half of these things are not done by professionals. So I don't have a problem of anybody finding corruption and going after it. Now, NCN and the state agencies, we have always felt that, I know they're always going to be sympathetic to the government of the day. Well, state agencies, they're in the news business. There'll always be that. And that's a reality of life you have to live with. And now the APNU is in office, APNU, AFC. They will be pro-APNU, pro-AFC. It's just something that I've learned to live with. But the thing is that it's not the obscene character assassination, etc. There's obscenity, and there can be decent pro-government support. And that is my concern. It's that against the obscenity, not about whether it's pro-government or not. Because I know NCN will be pro-government and Chronicle will be pro-government. It's a reality of life.
Mr. Jagdeo, sir, with regard to the land at Sparendam, there is a recommendation by the unit that carried out a probe on that, saying that some of the persons who have gotten this land should pay the difference because it was undervalued. And we're already seeing reports that some ministers then who bought the land sold it for 90 million, 100 million. Is that a concern to you, the selling price that they put in place? Yeah. And what would you have done?
Okay. First of all, the matter is sub judice. And that is why I have declined to deal with it, because I've argued this is not a new issue. They knew the same issue. They knew I was living there for 4 years now, or 5 years. They knew the price that I paid 5 years ago. It was in the media. It has been a recurring issue. And every time they run into trouble, like with the salary issue, I think they sought to fast forward the recommendations to knock the salary issue off the public radar. Because what they have recommended, and what Basil Williams said about civil proceedings, that they might institute civil proceedings. Civil proceedings have already been instituted by Trotman. Civil proceedings have already been instituted. and the matter is sub judice. So what this report recommended criminal proceedings, made it look spectacular, and then Basil Williams said, no, we may consider instituting civil proceeding. That has already been recommended, and that will wind its way through the courts. And at the end of the day, the courts will decide on that. What I noticed, though, is that they said at one stage that CHPA had nothing to do with this. It was done by NISL. And then I saw the same report saying they breached CHPA procedures. So there are lots of inconsistencies. But we talk about the ministers selling a few people and how they sell the land at 2,000 times the price and stuff. But it's not the land that they sold alone. Remember, they bought the land, they had to fill up the land, build a house on it. The house costs money too. So what I've seen them calculating the selling price and dividing the selling price by the price of the land to come up with a percentage, as though they sold the land back. They didn't sell the land, they sold a land and a house. They bought the land from the government. So when you talk about this 2,000% profit margin, it is comparing the land, the selling price with the land price, not with the house built on it. And it's unfair because I do not know how much they spent on building their houses. And so what may seem like a 2,000% increase if you compare it to the land is just a 20%, maybe 20% or 30% that they made. I don't know because I don't know the price of the land. So that is all I'm asking people to do, to be thing. And I noticed that they're not focusing on some people in there. So it seems as though, you know, if you're like a Gary Bess or something, you get a free pass. And, you know, right, you...
But do you think it could have been handled differently or better by your government?
But I don't know if the good Lord came down and handled and did something, but he was, people said, you know, he did it under the PPP government, you will still find 1,000 PPP haters who will find something wrong with it. You can never please this. There are some people, no matter what we do, they will hate us. The same people who are now so quiet. I see some of them who are blogging all the time about excesses and stuff. They've crawled into the government and presiding over some of the excesses now. Excesses and benefiting from excesses now too. And in the short space of 5 months, they have changed all this moral compass and moral standards. I'm sure you have seen it too. Yeah, you have seen it too. No, I'm not saying you are a beneficiary. I'm saying you have seen it happening. So this is it. One, let me, sure. Then I come wrong. Okay, yes. Please, I take about 5 questions more. All right? 5. Okay, all right. 3, all right, well, 1.
Yesterday we saw David Patterson study environment highlighting some discrepancies that was found in audit of some financial statements.
But again, it's the same thing with Patterson and the ministers. Yeah, but no, but it's the same thing with these ministers. They go out, they have to make us look bad. So they're jumping ahead of audits. There's no professional audit now. You know, you give a people a management letter. Yes. But the thing is that, all right, so find the people at Transport and Harbors Department. Find them and lock them up. So what's the problem? If you think that somebody at THD, right? It was Transport and Harbors Department, right? If you think somebody there was corrupt and the audit proved that, call in the police tomorrow. What's the problem with that? You know, so find them and then go take them to the court. There's no issue with it, absolutely not. Jomo, and then
Sir, we see reported there is some friction between you and Mr. Clementori, which you asking him to leave his post as your secretary. And one of the Monday press conferences. Please,
no, I have not asked Rohi to leave the general secretary position. The thing is that it's, huh?
where are they coming from? Is it-
I don't know. It's I news it's coming from. so the thing is that listen, there is no problem between me and Rohi, and the thing is that in the party, you know, people have their own views on many matters, but Rohi and I have absolutely no difference over where we are going, the direction our party is taking. And so I don't see this issue as major. I think it all emanated from this whole thing about the salaries. And when he was asked about it, he wasn't unequivocal.
He had to
It wasn't clear.
Yeah, it wasn't clear. But Prohi sat at the MP's meeting, and we all reiterated the same thing, because that was the evening. So it wasn't that Rohi had a different view. He might have said it in a way that was not clear to the media at that time, but he didn't have a different view. And then I came out and said our position is still the same. So it looked like it was a conflict. It was not.
So there's nothing going on between you and Rohi?
Nothing going on. Of course, there's nothing going on. There's nothing going on. Dennis, don't. Yeah, you sure you want to ask? Let's wrap it up there. Right. All right. Thank you.
Mr. John Deere, I know you said the matter with an say it's sub judice.
It's sub judice, and I'm nothing further.
Very broadly speaking, was the deal were the Nigerians above board during your admission?
Above board.
Above board.
Above board.
Final price?
Hmm?
The price is sold?
I don't want to speculate on the price. I can tell you. Yeah. Outside.